There's a guy who likes games, and the best that he's played are the ones that you'll see on the top 100. Repeat that part. Top 100 games. Good. I get a little bit freaky. That's right, I'm a little bit freaky.
Hello and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. And you thought it smelled bad on the outside. My name is Cody, and this is my top 100 games of all time. Today, we're going to be taking a look at my numbers 40 through numbers 31. Alright, now before I get started, I just want to say, so far I've gotten a lot of feedback. A lot of people aren't too happy that I've got so many war games on this list. And that's fine, you know, war games aren't everybody's bag. I like war games a lot, and there's a few more coming up. I've got a few more in this segment of 10. I've got a few more a little bit later on, but I think we'll see fewer in general as the list progresses. But again, I have to point out, war games are primarily what kind of got me into board games. So I have deep love and appreciation and affection for war games, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I love, love, love war games. If they're not your bag, stick around. There's plenty of other great games on this list that I think you'll really enjoy. So let's go ahead and jump into it. My number 40. Now, a little while back I mentioned a game that this one was based on. That was Dust, which was a kind of a science fiction Axis and Allies, if you will. Well, of course, number 40 then is Dust Tactics. This is kind of a squad level game where you got the Germans and the Americans, and they're fighting back and forth in these various locations on tiles. But what is really cool about this is it's a great game all the way through. But what I really like about this game are these minis that come with it. Are just amazing. They're articulated to an extent, and they're just beautiful. They're like these science fiction tanks from World War II, but they're walkers. And there's some other great stuff going on in this game. It's just a fun game, and it's really enhanced by the quality of those components, those walker minis. I love them so much. So, that is my number 40. That is Dust Tactics, and that is from Fantasy Flight Games. I believe I don't know if Fantasy Flight is still producing this line. I think it might be it is being produced by another company now. But, and the original long box core set you cannot buy anymore. No, that's no longer available. They were selling a smaller core box. And again, I don't know what the status of this is. I haven't really followed it. But the edition that I've got here is Fantasy Flight Games. That is Dust Tactics. Discriminating Gamers Top 100 Games. My number 39 is another one of these in the Command and Color line. I've already mentioned on this list Battle Cry and Battles of Westeros, the Game of Thrones version. This one came out late last year. It's a relatively new edition. This is Battle Lore 2nd Edition. Now, Battle Lore came out a few years ago, and this Battle Lore 2nd Edition, they've just come up with some brilliant innovations for it. For instance, instead of just set scenarios in the book, what you do is you actually, each player picks like their half of the scenario. They build the board based on which half of the scenario they selected. So it's going to be a different game board every time you play it. And then there's this interesting fog of war mechanic in where you lay cards down representing your units. Some of them are fake, they're not real units, and so neither side knows where they're really positioning their units. That's great, but again, it's a game where you get the different cards for the different flanks you're going to play on. In this case, you're going to roll some dice that are going to allow you to take certain moves as well. There's also kind of a magic element to it, and of course this is set in a fantasy universe, so you've got these great, again, just wonderful minis. You've got, for instance, these two big bad guys. You've got the two major guys for each side. The bad guy is this big kind of monster. The good guy is an eagle, and they're just look beautiful, fun game, interesting game. This is also from Fantasy Flight Games. That is Battle Lore 2nd Edition, my number 39. The Discriminating Gamers Top 100 Games. Okay, taking a break from war games, number 38 is a game that is a lot of fun. It's a game of kind of deduction, and you know, if you ever played Clue, it's a lot like Clue, except this game is interesting. And this is from Days of Wonder, Mystery of the Abbey. Now, Mystery of the Abbey, this game, I'm certain, is based on the book and the film In the Name of the Rose with Sean Connery. In fact, one of the character art in the rule book looks like it's Sean Connery. But this is about a murder in a monastery during the Middle Ages, and various monks have to deduce who the killer was, much like in Clue. You're going to remove one of the cards, place it under the board, and then through process of elimination you have to figure out who the killer is. But what is interesting about Mystery of the Abbey, and quite different from Clue, is in addition to just saying, do you have this card, do you have this card, there's some of that going on, but you can also ask other questions. The monks, the suspects, fall in different categories. Some are bearded, some are hooded, they come from different orders. Some are fat, some are thin, and so through process of elimination you can take people aside and say, do you have any fat monks? Do you have any, you know, from this order? Do you have any bearded monks? And in that way you can pretty much ask any question in the game, except for, I think, ones that deal with specific cards. So there's a lot more options, and there really is a lot more deduction here. So this is like Clue, but it's a much better game. There's also other things going on. There's different rooms that can give you kind of different abilities and some kind of events that happen. Very thematic and a whole lot of fun. That is Mystery of the Abbey from Days of Wonder, my number 38. Number 37 is a kind of a war game, but it's a very special one. It's a game that came out a few years ago, and sadly, Hasbro, the company that made it, didn't really take it and run with it, which is a shame because it's a lot of fun. But this is a science fiction war game called Battleship Galaxies. And this is based on the original old Battleship game, You Sunk My Battleship. It's based on that idea, but it's very different. You've got these cool spaceships that are minis that go around the board. They attack, they've got shields. You're rolling die to try to hit them left and right. But what is so cool about this game is this feature where each ship has its individual ship card. And each ship kind of has a what do you want to call it? A trigger point. So that if you can bring a ship's shields down, and then you roll a grid, some dice that have kind of a grid system, you match that up with the grid system on the ship card, and if that number hits that specific grid point, the whole ship just destroys. No matter how strong it is, no matter how much armor it has, if you have brought the shields down, you can destroy the ship with a very extremely lucky roll. It's fun. It's cool. I mean, it is luck, but it's still a very fun system, and it's one that makes you sweat every time. Are they going to get it? Are they going to get it? But it's got a good theme. It comes with a comic book that kind of sets it up. It's a fun game, and I really, really, really wish Hasbro had supported this game. I really wish they had made expansions. I was really hoping they would. I don't think they're going to, sadly enough. But that is Battleship Galaxies from Hasbro. That is my number 37.
There was a discriminating gamer, and he had 100 favorite games.
My number 36 is also a science fiction game. This one, however, is set in a much-loved television science fiction universe. This, of course, is Firefly, the game. Now, Firefly, the game, you know, and we mentioned this in episode 1 of The Discriminating Gamer. It used to be that games with intellectual property kind of tie-ins were not good games, right? They were just grab the money and run by printing a game that's got pictures of this TV show or that movie or whatever. And it's so cool to live in a time where you actually see good board game developers pumping out good games to match the intellectual properties. And Gale Force 9, which creates Firefly the game, they've done a great job of essentially bringing the Firefly verse to the game board. It's a lot of fun. You're going around the board, picking up various jobs. You know, sometimes you're delivering things. You're doing sometimes illegal things, sometimes legal things. There's a Federation starship out there trying to catch you. There's the Reavers that are going to try to catch you. Now, I gotta tell you one thing. This is a long game. This is a pretty long game. It plays 2 to 4 players, I believe, and it's a long game. That in and of itself isn't too bad. But I gotta tell you, this is not necessarily a game you play to win. This is one of those games you play just to have that fun Firefly experience. Now, certainly there are winners, but in the base game, it's almost like each player is playing their own little solitaire game. And that's good. And like I say, that's what gives you the those experiences, those Firefly experiences. Now, recently they came out with an expansion called Pirates and Bounty Hunters, I think, and I picked that up, but I have not played it yet. And from what I understand, that expansion makes Firefly the game more competitive. It makes it more aggressive. There's more interaction between players, which is what the base game was lacking a little bit. But still, it's a fun game. It's a fun experience. If you don't like Firefly, or if you've never seen Firefly, you probably won't appreciate it that much. It probably won't mean too much to you, and you won't like it. But if you do like Firefly, and so many of you do out there, like me, I really enjoyed Firefly, you'll really, really like this game. So that is my number 36, Firefly the Game from Gale Force 9. My number 35 is a dungeon crawl. It's a game that is set in the Dungeons & Dragons universe. That is Castle Ravenloft from Wizards of the Coast. Now, Castle Ravenloft is a game where essentially, kind of standard dungeon crawl. You're sending heroes, you and your friends, it's a cooperative game, go into a dungeon. And as you go into the dungeon, you are essentially creating the board as you go. You're laying down tiles to move into different rooms. There's not a lot of variation from the tiles. That's something I wish they'd... I wish there was something more going on with the tiles instead of just orientation of certain icons. I really wish there was more to that aspect of the game. Sadly, there isn't. But still, it's fun because you're going into these different rooms and you have specific objectives and specific quests that you're trying to accomplish. It's a fun game just mechanically, but what I really love about this game, again, is the miniatures it comes with. It comes with some fantastic miniatures. It's got a skeleton dragon. A skeleton dragon! It's not enough that you just have a dragon. It's a skeleton dragon. It's awesome. It's really a lot of fun. It's got some great minis, some real kind of scary, you know, imagery, scary fun imagery, and it's got just some great co-op mechanics. It's a fun game to play with other people. You're laughing, you're nail-biting. Good game. That is Castle Ravenloft from Wizards of the Coast, and that is my number 35.
No discriminating gamers, top 100 games.
My number 34 is a game that for a long time I probably would have told you was in my top 3, if not number 1. And this is from some years ago, again about 10-15 years ago, before I really started playing a lot more board games. Even more than that, I think I maybe picked this up probably nearly 20 years ago. It was a game that some of my friends and I played like clockwork every Sunday. We hit this thing for probably a year, if not more. We loved this game. It was a long game, and we didn't let that stop us because we loved it so much. This is a game that takes a lot of flack these days. A lot of people are not fond of it for various reasons, and I think a lot of that is because it is so long. But this is also probably the worst game when it comes to losing friends. You do not play this game with people who take in-game betrayal too seriously. I am speaking of, and I've already mentioned one of its kind of cousins, offshoots earlier in this list, but I am now speaking of Diplomacy from Avalon Hill. Diplomacy from Avalon Hill is amazing. You have to negotiate. It's a game where no one player... It takes place over Europe, and you're all trying to get cities. You're trying to gain cities, but no one player is strong enough to take anything on his own. So it's not a war game. It's not a dice chucker game. In fact, there's no luck in this game at all. It's a game of personalities. It's a game where you have to talk. Say, well, if you help me here, I'll help you there. But at the same time, that same guy you just struck a deal with, he's going over there to talk to somebody else to gang up on you, and you don't know who to trust in this game, and it's phenomenal. So Zach Zimbrunnan and Shawn Zimbrunnan, who of course are on the show from time to time here, the Discriminating Gamer. Shawn, of course, wonderful musician, does a lot of the music we have on the show. They're brothers, and they had probably the worst argument they've ever had in their life by playing a game of diplomacy. Just briefly in a nutshell, I had been winning every game we've been playing. Shawn, Zach, and our friend Stan, they decided they were going to get together and they were going to gang up on me. I was not going to win a game. They were going to put me in my place. So I knew the turn they were going to turn on me. I was able to hold them off for 3 turns. They couldn't do anything to me. But in that game, no matter how strong you are, you need allies, or sooner or later they're going to push you back. So when they brought their full force to bear, I started losing territory, and I went to Zach. I took him aside. I was France, he was Austria, and I held all of Italy. I said, look, I'll give you all of Italy. Let's just gang up on the other guys. Zach said, okay. I gave him Italy. We went after the other guys, and Zach ended up winning the game. But that wasn't good enough, because we used to sign peace treaties, the allies of the winner could be on the peace treaty, and I was on the peace treaty again because I was I was allied to the winner. Shawn did not take that well. Shawn and Zach had their worst fight ever. I think they got a fist fight in the car home. To this day, they still talk about how angry they are over how each other acted and what happened in that game. But it was a great, great game. Diplomacy is a lot of fun. Don't play it if you're going to lose friends with people. It's a long game, but it's very, very fun. The reason it's not higher up on my list right now is because a lot of games have replaced it. Some of them are quite similar. We'll see some of those a little bit later. But just generally, the length of the game and the fact that, you know, it's hard finding people to play it, I've kind of pushed it down the list. But it's a great game. That is Diplomacy from Avalon Hill, my number 34. My number 33 is a wonderful game that came out just a few years ago. It's kind of a Euro, but it's a game where you're trying to fulfill petitions and please the Queen by influencing members of her court. This, of course, is Courtier from AEG. Now, Courtier from AEG is a game of just... it's a game that you really sweat when you're playing, because you've got a petition. You can see these public petitions, and if you're getting behind, you're getting scared. And it's not easy, because when you're placing cubes on these government ministers to influence them. If you have the most cubes, you can influence them. But if somebody completes a petition, all the cubes from those ministers disappear, and you have to start all over again. But also, at the same time, neutral cubes are coming out that anyone can claim. And what makes this game so intense is you don't know exactly when the game is going to end. There's a card that's mixed in, and whenever somebody fulfills a petition, you flip one of those cards over. And toward the end, you know it's somewhere toward the bottom, but you don't know where, that card is going to come out that says the Queen is arrested, which is part of the storyline of the Tempest series, and the game is over. And if you don't have your points, by that point, you're kind of screwed. So it's kind of a race to fulfill the most petitions before that card comes up. It's a whole lot of fun. We actually reviewed Courtier in our Season 1, Episode 4 of The Discriminating Gamer, so you can check that out if you want to learn more. But it is a fantastic game. That is Courtier from AEG, my number 33. My number 32 is, again, back to the old light war games here. Sorry. This game is kind of one of the staples, and this was another big hit for Days of Wonder several years ago. And again, another one in these Command and Color games I've mentioned. This is Memoir 44. Now, Memoir 44 is probably my favorite because it takes place in World War II, which is, you know, just a fun era to revisit. But again, you got the different flanks. You play cards to move on the flanks and advance on the enemies, on your enemies. Germans versus the Americans, kind of around D-Day, France, 1944. Very fun. Not too deep. This is the kind of war game that even people who don't like war games play, because it's fun. It's engaging. It's got a broad appeal. So I really like Memoir 44, again by that Richard Borg Command and Color system, so check that out. That is Memoir 44, my number 32. It's from Days of Wonder. My number 31. My number 31 is a fantastic game. It's another kind of horror-themed game. It's a game that starts slow. There's some tension that builds, but it's a very slow starting game. Then halfway through the game, something happens that changes the dynamics completely. I am speaking of Betrayal on House at the Hill. Now, during Betrayal on the House of the Hill, the first part of the game, you're simply laying down tiles exploring a haunted house. And you're picking up cards when you go into certain rooms, and then you have to kind of roll dice to see what happens. But finally, you're gonna get to a point in the game where you explored enough of the house, and you're going to roll dice, and it will trigger the haunt. And the haunt can be one of, I think, over 50 different unique scenarios in which one of the players will become a traitor and will suddenly start working against everybody else. And these haunts are so fun. I don't want to spoil any of them, but just briefly, you can be attacked by various monsters, by aliens, by bats, by madness. There's all sorts of fun and different and unique adventures. This is a game that tells great stories, and they're different stories every time. So, that is my number 31, Betrayal on the House of the Hill. That is from Wizards of the Coast. And that does it for this segment of the Discriminating Gamer's top 10, or pardon me, top 100 games of all time. I'm really having so much fun now that we're getting down to some of my favorite games. I'm so glad to bring that to you. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the games, even if you hate war games. Let me know what you think of these games. I'm very eager to hear from you, either on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our website, on Facebook. Love to hear from you. Please like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. We are the Discriminating Gamer, and you know what? War games are kind of fun.
Somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm.
Start repeating again. Start repeating again. And these games.
Oh, I was looking at something.
That's fine. Just repeat. And these games that you'll play are the best. So he says. To be viewed. On YouTube. Are the top 20. Repeat that part.
Sorry.
Top 100 games. There's a guy who likes games, and the best that he's played are the ones that you'll say to be viewed on YouTube, and the games that he plays are the best that he says are the top 100 games.
I thought it was around.
It's supposed to be.